Black man, black fan, black fam. Welcome to Black Dad Code, where everything we do before family, nothing before family. I'm Kelly Major.
I'm Kevin Bailey.
And I'm Charles Williams. And today our guest will be Mr. Otis Williams. He's a distinguished gentleman from the Tulsa, Oklahoma area, and we're going to be interviewing him today on some of the things that's going on in the world today, North Tulsa, just his aspects on life in the Black Code period.
Otis Williams, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Williams.
Good morning,
How
Mr.
you doing? How you doing?
I'm well.
Mr. Williams, could you tell us, about your background, education, work experience?
Absolutely. I am 74 years old. I'm a retired lawyer. I was in practice for 43 years, which is kind of amazing. I was trained initially as an engineer. I have a bachelor's degree in engineering physics from the University of Oklahoma. I have a master's in political science from Nevada, Las Vegas, and a JD from the University of Tulsa. My family was a real estate-based family, and we were in business for 60 years until they all expired. I'm the survivor.
So then let me ask you, Mr. Williams, what have you observed over your life in terms of the black experience in Tulsa?
I think the economics of North Tulsa has been the most depressing aspect of my observation. I'm an observer now, but the economic decline of North Tulsa has been just, I guess, predictable. We don't have a viable community. We do have some business activity with the dispensaries, and you have, let me go back and say that business is predicated upon something called the principle of mercantilism. And what is that? There are three components to it. Number one, if you have a product to sell and there's a market for it, you might be successful. Secondly, you have to have access to capital. Thirdly, you have to make a profit. No business can operate in the red. The dispositive issue insofar as the decline of the black business community in North Tulsa is there's no market. There's simply no market. And that is a depressing realization for any of us as we look at the community and the violence and the negative social behavior and just the overall depressive state of affairs in North Tulsa.
So then how would you say the situation affects black dads and households?
Well, it's destroyed the family. It's the economics of the community that supports the integrity of the family. It's destroyed the family. Let me say this. Very few black women marry. 30% maybe. 50% of black men marry. The integrity of the family is the structural basis for prosperity. And it's just kind of pitiful, use that term, to be honest with you.
Okay, one more question. So then, how do you feel about, community policing and the things that go on in the community with the police and how that affects then what you're talking about?
It's absolutely critical that we reform the police, not dissipate the police. So obviously, if there is some kind of controversy, you're going to call upon the police. But they need to be reformed, and the key to it is community policing. In the context of our conversation a day or so ago, you indicated, and I agree with you totally, that you're less likely to shoot somebody if you know them.
Right. Exactly.
So community policing is the key to suppressing this violence and the negative social behavior that the youth are engaged in. It's really bad because my understanding is that these felony convictions totally impair your ability to do anything. To prosper, to marry, to do anything. And many of the youth don't understand that.
Now, I'm going to come at you a little bit different from that angle because, of course, while you're incarcerated, it does impair you from doing anything. but it doesn't once you're released. And I know that because myself, I had 2 life sentences at one point, and I was supposed to never come home. And not only did I come home, I went back to college. I reinvented myself. I got a career. I ended up getting my own business. Was it harder? Is it difficult? Is there obstacles I have to overcome? Yes. But you can overcome these obstacles. And I think that's where we're at now. Today is we know these obstacles was put in our place to hinder us and hurt us. And it did. And there was traps that was set for us. And a lot of us fell into them traps. But now that we have fell in them traps, we can't just say, oh, we fell in the trap and it's all over now. No, we have to get up out the trap, dust ourselves off, and then move on from that state.
I agree totally. But if you look at the numbers, for instance, in the context of our previous conversation, 80% of the inmates being processed through Cook County are African American men. There are 2.5 million people in custody in this country. In the United States, we incarcerate more people than any country in the world. I've been to China. We incarcerate more people than any country in the world. About 1 million of those people in custody are African American men. Amazing. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Depressing too.
I feel it's another form of slavery.
It is.
It's another form of free labor.
It is.
Yeah,
There's business.
Exactly,
I mean,
because a lot of those prisons are privatized now.
yeah, and that's what I said.
Yeah, exactly. Because I've been to prison in California and Arizona. I didn't know we had to do, say it was a laundry service, cleaner service, printing service, and all this labor was done for free by us or at a discounted rate. Say we were making 17 cents an hour.
Right.
And that's slavery in itself. You know.
When I was at the private prison in Cushing, they actually had companies. Like one was called High Tech. They came and they built a facility and everything on the prison grounds. And right outside the main fence, you had to go through fences to get to it because it's a medium security. But they built 2 warehouses behind it that ran companies that we went to work in every day. And now, if you worked in there, you made minimum wage, which was a lot of money to people sitting in prison on their books. $200-$400 something. But you had to pay rent and things like that if you had the job. Okay. So you ended up clearing maybe like $300 for the month. Yeah. But when you're not getting anything in, that's a lot of money to some people.
Yeah.
Let me join the conversation. I've been put in jail as well. Judge Kellogg put me in jail. He said he didn't like my attitude.
Was this while you were practicing? You were practicing law, so you was found in contempt?
He said he didn't like my attitude. It was just for a few hours, but it was an interesting experience.
Yeah.
Right, so they use the prison system to sort of check you, put you back in your place, let you know
he just didn't like my attitude. I think that was the issue.
It wasn't no racial undertone?
No, I knew him. He just, Stan Monroe and I were doing something probably we shouldn't have done. We were representing our clients, I thought, but at any rate, it was an interesting experience.
Well, I'm gonna jump in. So, Mr. Williams, can you tell us about the case where you fought against the Tulsa police and kind of what happened with that?
Absolutely. That was one of the more interesting cases in my so-called career. It's been a long time, but about 35 years ago, a great lawyer joined me in that case named Frank Pacenza. He's still a friend of mine. We went to law school together. I've known him 50 years. That case took 5 years to prepare.
Wow.
Ultimately, we got to trial. Judge Thomas Brett tried that case. It took 10 days to try the case. The plaintiffs were C.V. Hill and Roy Johnson, 2 Tulsa police officers. And let me make this comment. The dispositive issue in that case, after 5 years of preparation and 10 days of trial, was that Roy had a white wife. And it generated so much resentment from those fellow officers that he was ultimately fired. Mm-hmm. And how absurd is that? How absurd is that? But he had a white wife. He was from New York. I believe you were as well.
Yes.
And Judge Brett saw through it and ruled in our favor. We got paid pretty good fee, but it reformed to some degree the Tulsa Police Department as they went to a community officer, which is like an administrative position. They weren't graduates of the school, and they imposed upon any new recruit a college degree. I understand that's going to change.
Right. Yeah. So you're saying that they have to have a college degree now?
Yes.
Because you have to have a
Currently.
bachelor
Yeah,
currently, but they're talking about changing that because
They don't
it's
get
not enough
Exactly.
guys
That's
joining
exactly right.
or
Right.
can't meet that.
It's a dangerous job.
Yeah.
It's a dangerous job, but and it's a quasi-military job as well. You know, the attitude of one of the parties, police officer who testified in that case, was that he loved guns. I mean, he loved
He
guns.
just want to shoot you.
Well, apparently.
And the reason why we're speaking on the situation with the police and the community is because I think with the police state the way it is now, it has a direct effect on the black dad in the community and in the household. How do you feel about something like
Well, I agree with you totally. One thing about it is the perception of the policing authorities by younger people.
Right.
They're not adversaries, or shouldn't be. They think they are, and they should not be an occupying force. They should be, their motto is to protect and serve, and not to oppress people. So I think that the Tulsa Police Department, in their reach out efforts, are doing a fairly adequate job of ameliorating the friction that exists in the black community with the police.
Yeah, I agree with you. I spoke one time about when I was growing up in New York, the police were our friends' dads.
Right.
So we knew the police. They knew us. We grew up with them in our community, and there was a respect for them because we knew who they were.
Yeah.
And but now we don't know who the police are. They don't know us.
Yeah.
They don't live in our community. They don't come in our community except to police and enforce. They come with no compassion. And so then as the young child and you seeing this and you seeing them taking your father away, you know what I'm saying, in handcuffs, and you're seeing them being mean and being rude, then that develops I don't like the police attitude. I can't trust the police attitude. It isn't like we just all of a sudden became like, we don't like them, don't trust them just because they were the police. That attitude, I believe, was developed because of the interactions we had with them as police, and that's how they lost our respect.
What you're speaking of is culture. It's the culture of the Tulsa Police Department and policing agencies all over this country that is dispositive of how they treat people. We are a minority in this country.
Right.
And in that context, maybe we're not so welcome. Maybe, and I think that is manifested through the actions of certain police agencies. Every one of us have had contact with abrasive contact with these agencies.
Exactly.
Every one of us, every black man certainly has.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate and unnecessary.
Well, and that's what kind of comes around to where, like I said, as Black Dad Codes, we talk about this. We need to take that bar up again and start trying to police ourselves again, because at that point too, it just hinders from having so many of these confrontations where they're having to step in and do so much. Where, like I said too, we could maybe lighten that a little bit with our own. So, let me ask you this, Mr. Williams. Do you have any questions for us as being the Black Dad Code?
Yes, I do have a few questions. How do we repair the dissipation of the black family? This is a question that I don't have an answer for. But what do you think?
Kelly, you want to start and give us your...
Okay. The first thing I think is we have to educate. We have to make it be an issue that family is the key to our success. We also have to get a way to survive and take care of ourselves independently in our communities, to have, because if you don't have money and you don't have a way of making a living and you're struggling, then the community is going to show all of those effects. And if the fathers, like even if the father is in the home, but he's always gone at work because he has to work so many hours just to provide for the home. Is he really even at home? So we have to become first smarter about our money, and we have to start also buying and owning in our community. We have to own our homes. We have to own our land. We have to own our stores. We have to own the things, because if you own something, now you could take mortgages and loans and things against that to do other things. We have to get an economic basis along with the family basis to start bringing it back. That's why we here are taking Black Dad Code on, but some of my friends, Earn Your Leisure, are taking on financial literacy for us.
I always thought it was economic as well. You know, the economic oppression of the black community. As an aside, unemployment in North Tulsa, you know, if you conceptualize North Tulsa as a community, it's about 25%. That's the same as in the Great Depression. That is exactly the same level of employment during the Great Depression. So how do you overcome it? I have no idea. What do you think?
Go ahead, Kevin. I'm sorry. Go
You
ahead.
know, I would have to kind of agree with Kelly as far as the education piece on that. Just enlightening ourselves about certain things that keep us from repeating the same thing over and over and over. So I do feel like the education piece is a very important piece on there, because I think it just stops us from continuing this cycle. And then I think just adding more structure in the home. I think like if you see two parents that, you know, sometimes you do have families that are split, but like I said too, if you have two families that are working together and you have structure there, there's something you can build off of that. And then building off that too, you can, like I said too, you see us working together. You see us just making better decisions as far as for a family. Another thing I would say too is just the mental health side of it, just making sure too, like, hey, we understand certain things about ourselves, and we address these certain things. And like I said too, that our kids are able to deal with certain things, and like I said too, that they're able to make better decisions. But I think it all comes from just us being together, passing information, and just giving structure, and that way too we can make better decisions kind of moving forward. But
I think the most important issue is role model.
yeah, I agree.
I think
agree.
there
I
are
agree.
entire families of lawyers. There are entire families of doctors.
Yeah.
Generations of successful people.
You
When
come
I-
from that. That's how you, I mean, that's how your family was.
Well, I was going to make this comment as well. When I was in practice, I encountered entire families where every male member of the family was a convicted felon. And that's
Yeah.
obviously difficult to overcome.
Yes.
I don't think it is a conspiracy against the black family, but a lack of opportunity, which
Well,
seems
but-
to be the dispositive issue.
If that's what you see,
Yeah.
you repeat those, and that's the thing. You're repeating that same thing. Oh, and it becomes, like I said, it becomes that redundant. But like, as we've talked about your mother and your family, like I said, when you see these positive things, you see more to strive for, and so you're like, hey, I can do this, I can do that.
You also see opportunity.
Exactly. So
And I feel that it's economics too as well. But I think just like Mr. Williams was attesting to that, in most families, you say like in white families or Caucasian families, you find that the father or the great grandfather was a doctor. The grandfather is a doctor. The son becomes a doctor. His son becomes a doctor. And I think in the black community, we need to take those steps as far as we can take baby steps. Say like if I'm a plumber, you know what I'm saying? Say my grandfather was a plumber. I become a plumber. My son become a plumber. Not saying that we have to dumb it down, but we need to get to that part where we keep it so the economical structure will, you know, begin to say if he was a plumber, now we own the plumbing company.
Exactly.
Now we have 5 different, you know, companies
Yeah.
of that same plumbing. We need to get to that instead of trying to go to school. Most of the time we can go to college and get an education, but college is not for everybody. We need to get back to where we can get trades, that especially like the air conditioner trade, the plumbing trade, the electrical trade. We need to get back into that.
Not only that, there's a great opportunity to make money right now in this country.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. Because see, growing up in New York, I had a unique experience growing up with my friends. Is that we ran all over the city. Right. As young kids, because of trains and subways, we could go anywhere in the city. And I would go in different neighborhoods and things. And you take off at 9 o'clock to go see a girl in Brooklyn because her mother went to work at 9. Right. You know what I mean? Right. And you get down there, and by the time you leave her house, it's 11 o'clock, and you hungry, and you ain't got a penny in your pocket. So then I would go to a Italian restaurant or something, look in the alley, see it was messy. Hey, what if I clean up this alley and this and that for you? Would you give me a meal? So I learned early how to make hustles and make money no matter where I was, and thus came the name. My nickname is Stack a Dollar. Because the old dudes used to tease. They say you can make $1 out of anything. You gonna always make $1, and so now I look at it, and this is why I think things can change. And I see the natural order is we're in a depression right now, right?
Right.
There's jobs aren't hiring, things aren't going on, everybody's struggling, and they say it's so tight. But now it's time for the true hustler to really make money. For example, look at the grocery stores and look at the restaurants and look at the food servings right now. Have you ordered food lately? Or look at the price of groceries lately? Okay, so therefore we know we have a shortage of food. We have a shortage of supplies for 2 reasons. One, labor, and the other, transportation. Right. So now, boom, you get together with a couple of friends or something, you get you a truck, you can start driving, you can start moving things around. There's need right now for drivers, for truckers. You don't have to have college, you don't have to have anything other than you go get your CDL and you can get on with a company, save your money, and get your own truck.
Well, a lot of guys, what they're doing too, they're not even doing that. They're doing it to where they're getting the diesel trucks, and they're doing the hauling and stuff. And I've seen a lot of guys, because that's the thing too. So if you're doing this trucking service, you still actually work under somebody, but they're creating their own where they're hauling stuff with their and they're creating their own business. And so I love it because, like you said too, there's so much opportunity there because there's a
that's
need.
What we got to do. We have to realize and find us they're never gonna give us the fair share in their world that we deserve.
But is that really business? I mean, it takes decades to establish businesses.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy who has Musk, he's kind of an aberration in a certain context. I mean, he apparently did most of it himself. But it takes decades to establish businesses in the context of, for instance, the farmers, generations. Yeah. And they still fail. They still fail. They're subject to climate change and economic conditions. But by the way, there's a special.
Well, we're not almost so much now,
right?
Because of technology. You can grow in warehouses and things now, completely control the climate to everything. Because I do it. I grow indoors.
Okay.
I grow hydroponic in water. I create my own environment because each plant, each room has to have different temperature, different humidity, different feedings. So what I'm saying is, the ability is there now, and yes, it's going to take time to do it. But what I mean is, we have the chance right now because of technology and the condition that the country's in. That if we jump in now and we start working on this, we might not all the way get there in our generation, but our kids can see it and their kids can see it.
Well, that's the issue. Multi-generational businesses is the key to success. It's the key to a reestablishing family structure. I mean, if you can look at, for instance, something as strange as the Italian crime families. They were successful as well.
They were.
I mean,
and the reason why they created it because they created that because they couldn't get an upper hand in society. The so-called white, man at that time wouldn't give them an upper hand, so they created their own commission or whatever, and ran with that. And that's what I think. That's what African Americans or blacks need to do. Because a lot of people don't like the African American phrase that's being put on. Like I've never been to Africa, never. I'm gonna go,
and that's a great argument.
I'm gonna go one day, but I don't know why. I'm a black man in America.
Well, there are 56 countries in Africa. Which one are we from?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
So, yeah. But as far as it's economics in order to build. You have to build, and I think the structure is going to be start, especially with us. We're going to have to start small and take the jobs that no one wants, like, they say that the Latino people or the Mexicans do. And that's what we fall short at. We don't get together and work together, and everybody says that.
That's an argument that I remember from the 60s when I was an undergrad. Why can't we get together? Well, it's a matter of survival. It's a matter of individual survival. You can't reach out and assist anyone unless you have the capacity to help yourself.
Right. Exactly.
And that's really the key, and I think that's the impediment that most black families find, especially if you look at the culture of the black community, which is matriarchal. It's dominated by women. Most, unfortunately, the majority of black children are born out of wedlock. And how do you overcome that? And you're right. The economics of being alive in this country is a challenge to anybody. But I would like to ask another question.
What's that?
How do you guys conceptualize this Trump phenomenon? Give us your take on that.
Trump. I mean, it's just my personal opinion of Trump, because he didn't become a racist until he got in office. Because all the blacks liked Trump in the beginning when he was just Trump,
A CEO.
when he was just a CEO. I have this argument with my brothers, mothers, sisters, everyone, because I liked Trump. Point blank. And the only reason that I like Trump is because he put a lot of money in my pocket during the time that he was in office.
Yeah.
I had a great sales job and everything. Because of COVID, I was laid off. And due to being laid off, that was when the time so now I was on the job for 7-10 years. So I got unemployment. And then Trump threw in where I can get $1,000 extra a week on top of that. So that gave me money to start the businesses that I'm in now. Like you said, with the dispensary business, the smoke shop, music business, it gave me the capital in order to get structuralized. And I think he gave a lot of capital to African American people. And what we did, if we didn't spend it wisely, or we just went out and got those PP loans and lied about it, and some of us have been incarcerated for it. But there was a lot of money on the table for people to do the things that say what I'm doing now.
But do you think personal reference is really something that affirms the fact that he's not a narcissist, he's not a racist, which he is, he's not rich, he's not much of nothing, except a dupe for the far right wing of the Republican Party, which is now the GOP seems to be the party of white nationalism. How do you take that, Kelly?
I see Trump as a New Yorker and an opportunist. When I say that about is me being a New Yorker, I can go anywhere in the world and chameleon in, because living in my community, I have to deal with everybody. We are for real melting pot in New York. You turn a different corner, you're in a whole different neighborhood culture and everything, and they live like that in their neighborhoods. So I think in the beginning, he did a lot of business with us. One of my best friends has all of his plazas and repair all the whirlpools and refrigerators and things like that in them. So he did a lot of business with us, but I think he saw it as an opportunity to become president. By playing the angle he did, it would give him the power he wanted. And him being a bold New Yorker, we speak our minds so candidly that when it comes to us as African Americans, everybody hates us from New York. But when it comes to somebody else, when we're speaking on something they agree with, or they love us from New York. Like example, when I worked at Audi, they love my New York cockiness because I sold more cars than anybody else. So they like Trump because he speak up on things they parts. Oh yeah, because he's the loud voice for them. He's the person who can go out front and take all the heat.
Well, I think he's just a racist. I mean,
I
think it's as fundamental, as narrowly defined as that. He may not be playing it, but I don't think he has a lot of context. I read Tony's book, and I also read the book by his sister, part of it anyway. And he's got a history of resentment, of oppressiveness. His daddy was a
'Cause his
racist.
daddy was Klan.
Yeah,
Yes.
his daddy
Yeah.
was a racist.
Mhm.
And is that acceptable? Just because you benefit to it to some degree? I mean, is that acceptable? I deny the fact that he was ever a viable president. To me, he was an idiot. And he didn't speak very well either.
No,
He
he
keeps
didn't.
repeating the same diatribe over and over again, this and that. I mean, I like the parody of him on Saturday Night Live.
I like
That's
that too.
funny.
Yeah.
You
You know,
I love that. Yeah.
Me and Kelly had a lot of conversations over Trump whenever he was in office because, and I got a lot of insight from Kelly just because, it'd be certain things that he say and I would get so upset about. But then talking to Kelly and him just saying, hey, like I looked at his actions and stuff like that, and I really do feel like he tries to just work in circles where it's going to benefit him better. And so it's certain things that he does and it becomes like a book. Like once you understand that, like nothing ever surprised me about what he did. So
Don't you
like
think he's a divisive force?
He's a money man.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about
the dollar.
And so, like I said, I will say this. You can put me on record. I do think he's a great businessman. Now, does he speak well about certain things? No, but I do feel like he's an opportunist in certain situations, and so if he sees an opportunity with a certain situation, he's gonna fully exploit that. Now, as far as like his personal views and stuff like that, do I agree with? No, but like I said too, I do feel like he maybe overextends certain situations to try to make an opportunity at it. And he knows what riles people's up. I mean, he knows when people get riled up and people start. You're not thinking about. If he gets you riled up on this, you're not thinking about this, and so it's.
Well, let me say this. I appreciate your comments, but
Mm-hmm.
as a lawyer, I took an oath to support the Constitution of the United States of America. This guy fomented a revolution. He attempted to undermine the Constitution of the United
And
States.
I totally agree with that. I totally agree.
I mean,
And
that's
that was
just positive of his integrity as a human being or as a person. He doesn't have any belief in the Constitution. He has one focus, and that's money and making money.
That was, and like I said too, with his own agenda stuff. Yeah, he doesn't respect that, and he has certain things where, like I said too, it's his own personal agenda.
You realize we're talking about the ex-president of the
Right.
United
No, I did. So,
But where did Trump fall in to when it come to black, dad code? So where did he fall into the pocket set?
We're a political issue. We are a political issue, and it's easy to foment divisiveness among people if you've got a political issue. Think about this. This is so absurd. The longest seating justice on the Supreme Court is Clarence Thomas. His wife is an election denier and a member of the Proud Boys. That's insane. That makes no sense at all. A black jurist is married to a white nationalist.
Right.
Incredible. Incredible.
that's
Incredible.
Yeah, that's incredible, man. Yeah. So now in the state that we're in, we're in the Biden administration. So tell me a little bit about your thoughts on Biden.
I think he's very experienced. I mean, he was VP for 8 years, and the fact that Obama chose him gives him some credibility in my mind. Obama was possibly the best president in the past 100 years. A very, very bright guy, a Harvard-educated lawyer, as was his wife, and these are just empathic people who care about people. Obama's a good guy. He's a true African American. I think his family's from Kenya, and his wife was a white woman, and he's just a good guy. I met him once. I wanted to tell you an anecdote about President Clinton. I went to a conference in Denver many, many moons ago. It's called the National Conference of Black Lawyers. I don't think it exists anymore. It's kind of socialist, but they were good people. And I met President Clinton when he was AG, Attorney General of Arkansas. And he had a number of black lawyers that he'd hired in that capacity. Of course, this was before he was elected president. It was interesting that I met him. He's very friendly, very nice guy, and I spoke with him for about 10 minutes. 5 days later, I saw him again. He said, "How you doing, Otis?" I mean, he was that kind of guy. Wow. I mean, fascinating individual, brilliant guy, succumbed to possibly the silliest event in American history. Amazing.
I have a question for you. Okay, so getting back to the Black Dad Code and everything we're talking about and all, how do you think this forum here that we're doing, Black Dad Code, can help with the black community and bringing dads back in and the things we discussed today?
If they pay attention. If they pay attention.
I love it. I love it.
If they don't pay attention, I mean, you have to be observant, you have to be analytical, and you have to be quantitative. You can't be qualitative. I mean, 2 plus 2 is 4. That's quantitative. If you say that 2 plus 2 equals 3, that's qualitative. And that makes no sense. So if they pay attention, everything can help because things are not good.
Okay, let me get a closing remark from everyone. Chuck, closing remark?
I'd just like to thank Mr. Otis Williams for coming, to share his insight with us. Like I speak with him, at least once, twice a week. He comes and visits my shop on a regular basis. But my closing thoughts would be like, we got to stick together more as family and community. We need to help each other more. It takes a village to raise, a child. And that's my thing. If we see kids out there doing things that they are not supposed to be doing, we probably need to report it to their parents or to make that phone call like we used to do back in the day.
Well, I too want to say thank you, Ms. Williams. I mean, this the conversation we had even before we start filming, man, I feel like the nuggets that you were dropping, like I loved it. And I love hearing these stories just because, like I said too, it gives a depiction of a different time other than the time that I know. So I love getting that view. And like I said too, I want to thank you for spending the time. I guess I'll leave off with just saying, like I said too, kind of what Chuck was saying. I mean, as far as with it does take a village, and like I said too, with that village, it's listening to people who have knowledge and people who've been through certain things, and just really like taking that insight and using it and not letting it just go to waste. So I want to say thank you. Like I said too, I feel like I've gained insight from you, and that way too, I can utilize that in something that I give to my kids. So.
And I would also like to say thank you for coming in, Mr. Williams, interviewing you today. And today's interview was different than what people most think like Black Dad Code. And the reason why I wanted to interview you is we have to know the economical, the political, the financial, the history, all the aspects of our community in order to be good black dads. And we have to look at it from all them angles. And as someone who has been in the legal system, and which was the system that has hurt and hindered so many of us, you gave us a perspective from the other side, looking in like, okay, these are some of the issues that I see that hinder us today, and hinder the existence of the black family and things that can go. And so every show won't be just about being the dad as far as raising your kids, but it is being the dad because as a father, you have to know what's going on in your community and your world and your environment on all levels in order to properly raise and provide and protect your family. So with that being said, black man, black fam, black fam.
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
Thank you. Have a goal. Focus on your education. Do something instead of making the mistakes. The pitfalls are obvious. You don't engage in criminal activity. You don't abuse other people. Have some respect for something or someone.
Exactly.
That's my comment.
Black man, black fam, black fam. Welcome to Black Dad Code. Thank you for watching. Where everything we do before family, nothing before family. Peace.
Well, I enjoyed this.